Right, good morning ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Property Subcommittee at Staffordshire County Council today, Wednesday the 19th of July. First item on the agenda are the apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies?
We've got apologies from Councillor DeVille and Councillor Price.
Second item is declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest? For the record, there are none. Third item is the minutes of the meeting held on the 3rd of June 2023. Is it your wish I sign them off as a correct record? Councillor White.
We've moved that recommendation, please.
Thank you. The fourth item is the review of the terms of reference and schedule of decision-making levels. I think this is an annual presentation that we have. Pardon? Every 2 years, biannual. Mr. Bradbury, we're with you.
Good morning, Chairman. As members will probably recall, an audit report in 2019 recommended that the subcommittee should review its terms of reference at least every 2 years. This subcommittee's terms of reference were last reviewed in August 2020, so we're now slightly overdue for a review. Attached to your report for consideration are proposed changes to the terms of reference and the schedule of decision making. They are predominantly minor changes to improve detail, particularly in relation to the referral to the Secretary of State. If the subcommittee is minded to approve the proposed changes, the Deputy Chief Executive and Director for Corporate Services has the necessary delegated powers to make the changes to the Council's constitution. That's all I want to say, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bradbury. I do find it particularly helpful when the changes are tracked in the way that they have been, so it makes it very, very clear to everybody, and it is in the public domain, this, precisely what is being proposed. I have no difficulties with the proposal as set out, unless other members of the committee have any indications one way or the other. No. Councillor Parry, no. It's recommended that we adopt the revised terms of reference and schedule of decision-making levels as set out. With that, all those in favour?
Agreed.
It is agreed. Thank you, Mr. Bradbury. The next item on the agenda is the proposed lease of 5 Spires Academy, Lichfield. In the absence of Councillor DeVille, who's away today, I will take this forward. This is in the Lichfield City South Electoral Division. Local member is Councillor Colin Greatrix, and it is a recommendation for a grant of a 125-year lease, academy lease to 5 Spires Academy Lichfield to the Reach 2 Academy Trust. These leases to academies, as everybody on this committee knows for some time, are pretty routine. I don't think there's going to be a great deal to be said about it other than what's set out in the report. But Mr. Turner, if you'd like to lead off for us in absence of anybody else, I'd be grateful.
Thank you. Yeah, you say, Councillor White, it is a standard lease. The thing to note with this is it isn't timed with an academy conversion. It is a retrospective lease. The academy weren't in a position to enter into the lease at the time, so we're just regularising the situation. What I would say is we don't do that anymore. We have a much more robust process where we're building new schools. We go for agreements for lease beforehand, so we are minimising this, but there are just a few to get through to regularise the situation, so there's a formal lease in place, and this is one of those. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we open it up to members of the committee for conversation, finance, any comments?
No comments, Chair.
Legal?
As this regularises this position, there's no comments.
Has there been any comments from the local member?
The local member has just said that he has no matters to raise.
Members of the committee, a fairly routine item, I think we'll all agree. That said, I'm being presumptuous, it may not be routine. I throw it open for any observations or comments. No? No. In that case, it is recommended that the lease be granted to Reach 2 Academy Trust as set out. All those in favour?
Agreed.
It is so approved. Moving forward then to agenda item number 6, which is the renewal of the lease on Landywood Voluntary Services Day Centre premises at 154 Walsall Road, Great Worley, Staffordshire, WS6 6NQ. I think my initial observation is I can't believe it's come around so soon. It doesn't feel like 3 years. Mr. Turner, if you'd just like to speak to this briefly, please.
Yes, so this is a renewal of a lease. The lease has been in place and the tenant has been in occupation since the mid-80s. And the lease renewal comes up periodically. It's come up again. There are minor concerns that we have with the stability of the finances of the organisation that run in this. We don't have any concerns with the way that they're operating the property. It's more for their ongoing sustainability. We've had discussions with the organisation and they accept those post-COVID elderly users of the facility. So there are challenges with them. So they accept those, they are addressing them, but instead of, so we're proposing that rather than giving a 5-year lease as we have done in the past, we just give a 3-year lease, which sort of brings the review period forward slightly. So same terms, just a 3-year lease instead of the 5-year leases that we've been doing in the past. Thank you.
Obviously, looking at yourself, Vanessa, is it an excluded lease?
My understanding is it's not excluded, so they do have a right to a statutory continuation.
Okay, well, we know the implications of statutory continuation, should we wish to step in at some point, but your points are relevant, Mr. Turner. If they're looking after the building well, that's fine. We do want to make sure that they have some level of financial sustainability, though, to give us some sort of certainty that the building is going to be maintained in good order. Finance, any comments from you?
No, nothing to add to that that's set out in the report, Chair.
Legal, any further comments?
No further comments.
Local member comments?
Yeah, I've just got a letter from Kath Perry to read out. So it's good morning to you all. Unfortunately, I'm unable to attend today's meeting in person, but I am sending this letter of support for the Landywood and District Voluntary Help Centre and the retention of the 3 years lease period as is proposed in the report. I won't go into the history of the centre as you already have that information before you. Landywood and District Voluntary Help Centre have been and still do provide a valuable service to both Great Wylye and the wider community, serving both elderly and vulnerable residents. They are dedicated volunteers and I am sure they will do their best to generate activities and bring the centre back to its full potential. It is at the heart of the community and very much needed by the people who frequent the centre and the much wider community, so I sincerely hope that you will look at their request for a further lease on the property favourably, please. Thank you for your time and listening to this message.
Mr. Cawes, before I open it up for comments from the committee, any comments from yourself?
No further comment. Not from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the committee, you've seen the contents of the report and the recommendations associated with it. You've heard the comments around the financial viability of the organisation, the fact they are looking after the property, and the mitigating features that we've included in this, which is reducing the length of the lease term. Are there any additional comments or observations you have with this application? Councillor Parry.
I was just wondering what happens in the possibility of default and their inability to pay any form of cost towards this, and it does start to fall into disrepair, etc. At what point is the point at which we need to intervene?
Now, my understanding is that if you don't pay your rent on a lease, you cannot renew at the end of the term, and that actually allows us to step in at the end of the term until such time. I'm not sure though, but I've got legal indicating, and then yourself, Mr. Turner.
We would serve a Section 25 notice if we didn't want to renew, and then there's the grounds under Section 30 which enables us to terminate. One of them is not paying the rent, but I think this is a peppercorn rent in this instance, isn't it? So that wouldn't be applicable, but if there's also, if the property falls into disrepair, that is a ground as well.
Thank you. I was going to say the same thing, that there's a condition around the condition of the property. So if we had any concerns, we would be stepping in. And again, it's another reason for the 3 years. These things don't happen, so we'll be looking for deterioration rather than a very absolute state of disrepair. So that's why we're putting this forward. To your point about it not being excluded, of course, exclusion would mean that we could start charging a rent, a market rent, if we went down that route about forcing the lease to be renewed. So we're not in that situation. We don't envisage those problems. My view is that if their financial situation worsens, then they will be looking to close the operation rather than continue there. But we will keep an eye on it from a property point of view in terms of the condition of the property, because that is our main concern. Thank you.
This is an organisation that does good things, has the support of the local member, and therefore gets the support of this committee. Councillor White, any? No. So you've seen the recommendations set out. They are to grant to Landywood Voluntary Services Day Centre a 3-year lease renewal term on the premises at 154 Walsall Road, Great Worley, Staffordshire, at a peppercorn rent with other terms similar to the existing lease. And second, other terms of the proposed lease be delegated to the Assistant Director for Commercial and Assets to approve. All those in favour?
Agreed.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the exclusion of the public. I move that the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A as amended of the Local Government Act 1972 as indicated below.